Hello everyone, I hope you're doing really well. It's the 21st of March 2025. I'm Gary Waterman. I'm a former UK police constable, and since 2022 I've acquired irrefutable and verifiable evidence of decades-long international government fraud. This is where our governments have been forging company registration systems and also incorporation documents to create criminal entity companies that should never have been allowed to trade. And because it's linked to the taxation system and other financial matters, it means that those companies are able to exploit and victimize millions of people through the financial system. But also it facilitates crimes against humanity, whether it be through genocides or pharmaceutical interventions. But also it facilitates the most awful crimes against children, the most innocent of all. Now, many of you will know that I've been calling for an international strike starting from the 15th of March 2025. It doesn't appear as though enough people are taking part. Now, other groups are suggesting the 28th of March 2025. So I urge you to prepare, promote and participate in that. Now, there's also another group that's coming calling for a strike in May. I suspect they've been positioned to allow a time delay by those involved in the fraud. Now, there's overwhelming evidence coming to my attention that suggests we have a satanic cult behind this, an evil cult that practices satanic worship. And therefore, I believe we're at a serious risk. So we need to take part in a collective strategy as soon as possible. Now, let's have a look at this other group that's calling for a strike on the 24th of May. And I'm going to show you evidence in relation to the satanic side of things behind everything we're talking about. The group that I'm referring to, it's called the Great British National Strike, and this was a screenshot taken from their TikTok account maybe nearly 3 weeks ago. And as you can see, they had over 51,000 followers. This is more recently from yesterday, screenshot showing nearly 63,000 followers. So they're not being suppressed at all. This is the person that's calling for the strike with this group. And they're calling for it on the 24th of May 2025. However, for a strike or withholding of payments as a form of protest, you need to know what you're asking for. But this group, as far as I can see, are not actually calling for any specific measures to be implemented or changed as a result of the strike. And they're only calling for a strike for 1 day, which means it will have little to no effect unless millions actually take part. And of course, they would know this. Now, this group has only been set up very recently. And according to this person, it is the fastest growing TikTok account on TikTok at the moment. Now, these are private messages that I've sent to the group. This was the first one saying, please call me as soon as possible with a mobile number. I am a former cop and have also been calling for strikes, but have evidence of a possibly imminent collaborative government attack against the masses using directed energy. Thank you, Gary Waterman. I then sent another message after I'd put a comment on their video, and they then accepted me. You can see message request accepted in the middle there. So I sent the same message again, no response. I then sent a third message around a week ago saying, please contact me as soon as possible. There is little point in striking without knowing what you are trying to achieve and the evidence to justify a strike. I have irrefutable, spelling wrong there, and verifiable evidence of the crime behind the system and therefore what needs to be achieved from a strike. It is the forgery within Companies House to create criminal entity companies that can launder tax contributions to offshore accounts to defraud the masses of trillions. Please contact me urgently. Thank you, Gary Waterman. No response. So we have to consider that this group has been set up specifically as a time delay for something between now and the 24th of May when they're calling for the strike. And you can see with the amount of followers, my evidence is being completely suppressed. Every channel I've had has been removed for some reason or another, or at some time or another. I can't even upload videos to Telegram anymore. I can't even upload videos to Rumble. And they removed my TikTok accounts previously. They've removed my YouTube accounts twice, I believe, TikTok twice. So I'm being massively suppressed and controlled. And I'm showing public information, okay? Information that is available to everybody through the government's own public systems. It should not be being suppressed or restricted at all. But it is, because all social media is completely compromised and part of this fraud. And I'm going to show you an example in TikTok now. This is the document that I'm building in relation to social media. It's not finished yet, but all social media companies are linked to this fraud very, very quickly. International government fraud that deliberately facilitates crimes against humanity. But let's get to the TikTok part, which is further down here. And I will publicise all of this evidence at some point. But obviously this video, I just want to keep it to the main points. And they're all linked to international fraud, like I said, fraudery all the way through. So when we search on TikTok, through the Companies House record, just the word TikTok, we find TikTok International Limited. Okay, TikTok International Limited was incorporated on the 12th of February 2019, the same year as the outbreak in Wuhan, COVID outbreak in Wuhan in December that year. I suspect that is not a coincidence. And please, you can verify all of this information. Go and check that everything I'm telling you is true. So if we look into that company, here's its incorporation document that you can find within the filing history. It's linked to a company called Coleman Coyle Solicitors. That's not one that I've actually noticed much before. Certainly hasn't jumped out at me before. Let's have a look at Coleman Coyle Limited, which is a solicitor's firm, started in 1992. And within the people record, you'll find Robert William Coyle. This is the Companies House records. Remember, you can check this on the Companies House website. Here's linked to a Virgin company. Okay, hopefully you'll know about the Virgin Foundation. They feature throughout the fraud. Richard Branson, its founder, very well-known entrepreneur, who's obviously a billionaire now, has been featured, according to the research, on the Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell court documents in relation to child trafficking. He had an island that was right next, or still has the island, I believe, that was right next to Jeffrey Epstein's island. And Virgin companies are linked to the fraud in a huge way. They're also linked to the Royal Corinthian Yacht Club Limited. Now, yacht clubs feature throughout the fraud because yachts are a way of transferring any criminally obtained laundered money into an asset, okay, a tangible asset, and it makes that money harder to then identify through the payment of the yachts. Here's an acronym for the same company, but another company, RCYC Cows Limited. Now, when you go into that company in a bit more detail, I'm going to show it another time. It's very interesting. It links to royal companies, okay, but I'm just not going to show it now. But here's RCYC Cows. This is the company, and it now links to the Isle of Wight. Now, for those of you who aren't aware about what happened to me, I was part of a company called Exmoor Manor Freehold Limited. I was a director, and a lady called Deborah Fleming initiated my removal for refusing to file forged bank documents for our company. Deborah Fleming was an NHS Chief Executive Officer in charge of a £700 million budget and 10,000 staff, and it appeared that she resigned as I was making inquiries in the company that I was part of about the fraud that was coming to light. She was the Chief Executive for NHS for Hampshire, Isle of Wight and Dorset. There are also connections through Dorset Police to Hampshire and Isle of Wight Police, and they then moved the officers Sam Dereya and Scott Chilton, the Chief Constable, to Hampshire and Isle of Wight Police after I had started to report the irrefutable evidence of the fraud to Dorset Police. Now, that's a criminal entity company. Okay, here is Swift Incorporations on the incorporation document, and Jordan's and Sons Limited. Those companies were the same companies used to start Exmoor Manor Freehold Limited. When you research Jordan's and Sons Limited, now trading as Vistra Limited, you will see it was incorporated in 1965, the year before the foundation of the Church of Satan in 1966. That is no coincidence, because we are talking about a satanic, evil system in place. Back into the TikTok International company, this person links to TikTok Music Limited. Here's TikTok Music Limited. And if you go into the company, it was started in 2020, September, when many of us we were still in lockdown then? Can't remember. And on that company document is Companies Made Simple. We're going to have a look at Companies Made Simple for those of you that haven't seen it before and how relevant it is. But just to show you here, this is the beginning of this document. YouTube links in to Companies Made Simple via Elite real estate companies. Elite Estate Global, Real Estate Global Limited. I'll show you this in more detail another time. Elite Global Limited. Now the elites, if you're not aware of it, are the name they give themselves, I believe, the criminal entities that are now running the world. But they're also linked to Phones Global, which again shows a connection to the threat of directed energy via the communication systems, and I'm going to come to that a bit later. So here's companies made simple that we were referring to a moment ago. There's only one company that comes up with that name when you search it, and here's the overview. Started in 2004. You can see the address of 20 Wenlock Road. On the incorporation document, you can see, and this is very important, Westco Nominees Limited. And why is it so important? Because when you search that company, if it loads up, okay, so this is now searching for Westco Nominees Limited, it comes up with this company of the same address, 20 to 22 Wenlock Road, dissolved in 2018, started in 1994, okay, the same year as the Stargate movie, which I suspect is likely relevant in relation to all of this. But when you look on the incorporation document, the company name has been completely removed. You can see this box here in the middle of the screen. That is where a company name would normally be. You can see the lines are missing, which suggests it's a forged document. And you can see also it links to Waterloo. Now, Waterloo is a very important company. It links to the currency producer, which I'm going to come to a bit later, and Waterloo and Sons, which then ties in, as I've said, to the currency producer and links to Iran as well. Now, all faith groups have been infiltrated. Everyone has been deceived by this satanic occult behind it all. Okay, all faith groups. This is not about faith. They want a conflict, a divide between faith, and this is where it refers to the Albert Pike letter. We're going to come to a bit later. But this company document has been removed. Company name has been removed, even though this is a signed document according to this. If it's genuine, if it's authentic, I suspect we know the whole system is criminal. That is a fact. Remember, I was in the police for 18 years, and I'm telling you, the whole financial system that we're living under is completely criminal, fraudulent, exploitative, and victimizing of most of humanity. So they've removed this document, and that would be the remove the name, sorry, the company name. Now that would be our governments that have done that, okay, because the government controls the register. So when this document was originally signed and input onto the system, it would have been logged and recorded and registered against the electronic register, okay. So it appears as though they've gone back in and removed the company name from the document when this exposure has began. And this company is very, very important, Companies Made Simple, because it links the World Trade Center disaster to a plan, a satanic plan, I believe, of international child trafficking via the National Council for Civil Liberties, or the group of liberty companies, okay, that links to the paedophile information exchange. And that same company, Westco Nominees, links the National Council for Civil Liberties, as well as Silverstein Real Estate. Okay, Larry Silverstein was the one that purchased the lease for the World Trade Center building in July 2001. It was the only time it had ever changed hands in 31 years. And of course, the building later collapsed later that year. And after the disaster, Larry Silverstein received a Liberty Fund grant to rebuild it. Or, in relation to the insurance for the building that collapsed. So I suspect they realised where this might lead and removed this company name to try and hide the legal connection, but it's too late. They've exposed, fully exposed, international government fraud without a shadow of a doubt. So that shows you that TikTok is controlled by the fraud. So this group is being allowed to have a following, unrestricted following. They're not responding, and they're not calling for what measures, as far as I can see, what measures they are hoping to achieve from it. So I suspect this is a time delay. So what is it a time delay? What's going to be happening between now and the 24th of May? Well, you've got the Passover between the 12th of April and the 20th of April 2025. The Passover is a major Jewish holiday and one of the 3 pilgrimage festivals. It celebrates the exodus of the Israelites from slavery in Egypt. Now, I am very confident that we have an infiltration of the Jewish faith by a satanic group of individuals. And I'm going to show evidence of that a little bit later. But we have this very important event coming up in April 2025. Reading on, it says, according to the book of Exodus, God commanded Moses to tell the Israelites to slaughter a lamb and mark their door frames with its blood, in addition to instructions for consuming the lamb that night. For that night, God would send the angel of death to bring about the 10th plague, in which he would smite all the firstborn in Egypt. Now, we have to consider, with all of this evidence, that this satanic group is going to use a falsified biblical prophecy or biblical event to carry out a very serious attack against humanity. I suspect that's certainly what they were planning, possibly still are planning. But there is a chance that by exposing this, it will prevent their plans. But we can't rely on that. We need the masses to do the right thing and to stand up against this satanic system and against the suffering of children. Now, we've noticed here there's mention of Egypt. A lot of the evidence suggests that we have a Pharaoh, ancient Egyptian group behind this that have then been infiltrated, if you like, by the Church of Satan. And in the 1920s to 1930s, according to the research, there appeared to have been an Egyptian resurgence. Okay, and a lot of the companies in relation to this, the important ones, are back in the 1920s, early 1930s. And they, when you read about the Egyptians, they have a motive to remove Christianity. And at its basis, Christianity is about righteousness. Okay, it's about turning from sin. It's about loving your neighbour, treating everybody how you want to be treating, but also having forgiveness in the right circumstances, which I think is very, very important. Reading on, it says the main entity in Passover, according to Judaism, is the sacrificial lamb during the existence of the tabernacle and later in the temple in Jerusalem. Here's an interesting article in relation to the third temple. Now, I've seen various reports that they are rushing now to build the third temple since this fraud has been exposed. And here's an article mentioning red heifers and the third temple in end time prophecies. And further down, it says, although Jewish people have always lived in the Holy Land, after the Holocaust, the Jews began returning to Israel en masse. In 1948, the Jewish nation was prophetically reborn as the State of Israel, and ever since Jews have been streaming back to the land from all 4 corners of the earth. Now, this date, 1948, is very important in relation to the international government fraud. The research shows that in 1947, the United Nations was involved in a petition which then led to the Israeli-Arab War in 1948. It also links in with the Balfour Declaration of 1917, which involved the Rothschilds. If you don't know who the Rothschilds are, they're a German banking family, and they are heavily implicated in this international government fraud that ties in with the Church of Satan. The Rothschilds also link very closely with the Church of England, and Justin Welby, who's the Archbishop of Canterbury, who resigned in 2024. That resignation is without a shadow of a doubt related to the exposure of this fraud. Now, this to me, along with other things, and we're going to look at this later, supports that we are not referring to real Jews in relation to this control of the system. Reading further down here, it says, since 1967, there has been a movement in Israel to rebuild the Holy Temple. However, the main obstacle is that the Temple Mount is currently occupied by the Dome of the Rock. Now, that same year, you had the incorporation of the London Law Agency. Here it is on Companies House, and you can see it was incorporated in 1967. This is a criminal fraudulent entity company, and since it has been exposed, you can see it is in liquidation. They are shutting the company down. And here you can see it's fraudulent. No other companies are registered on the overview. Whereas when you go into the filing history, I know many of you would have seen this already with my previous research. I'm just going to actually show you it live. Okay, it's actually got Ganvilon Motors on the incorporation document. That's not been registered. And you can see Jordan's and Sons, which we're going to come to in a minute, is also linked to the international government fraud. So this is a fraudulent criminal entity company. This is one of the main companies used throughout the world's international government fraud that they now have in place. So remember, this was incorporated the same year as the article that we were just looking at. And here is Vistra Limited, that was incorporated in 1965, so 2 years before the London Law Agency. But you can see here it had previous names of Jordan's and Sons from 1965 to 1996. The same company that was on the document for the London Law Agency. Look when they last changed their company name. First of all in 1996, 5 years before the World Trade Center disaster, and then changed it from Jordan's Limited to Vistra in April 2019, the same year as the outbreak. It too is a fraudulent criminal entity company. So you can see, and I'll explain why, you can see there's three names: Jordan's and Sons Limited, Jordan's Limited, and Vistra Limited. Whereas when you go into the filing history on the incorporation document, you can see it has Hammerplag Limited. So it's a criminal fraudulent entity company. And these two companies, the London Law Agency and Jordan's and Sons, are probably the most important, widely used companies in the fraud. The other two that are very important are Waterlow's, which we'll come to another time, and also Companies Made Simple, because of the Westco nominees linked to the World Trade Center disaster. So remember, this company was incorporated in 1965. So we have this company, 1965, London Law Agency, 1967. And right in the middle of it, we have the foundation of the Church of Satan. You can see it says here, the Church of Satan is a religious organisation dedicated to the religion of Satanism as defined by Anton LaVey, founded in San Francisco in 1966. Reading further down, you can see that it links to occult, witchcraft and Satanism. And of course, that would or could involve mind control of the masses using MK-Ultra, pharmaceuticals, subliminal messages, radiation, hypnotism, television, radio, movies, etc. Further down, under the history of the Church of Satan, it was established, you can see in the middle here, Church of Satan was established at the Black House in San Francisco, California on, I'm not going to try and pronounce that. Now that is related to Germany. When you research this, it's Saint Walpurgis night, okay, from Germany. Is the eve of the Christian feast day of Saint Walpurga, an 8th century abbess in Francia. So we have a connection to Germany and the foundation of the Church of Satan. Also further up, and very likely relevant, we can see it says in 2001, Peter H. Gilmore was appointed to the position of High Priest, and the church's headquarters were moved to Hell's Kitchen, Manhattan, New York City. 2001 is, of course, the same year as the World Trade Center disaster, which is unquestionably related to this international government fraud. And in case you're wondering, yes, Gordon Ramsay is connected to the international government fraud. So you can start to see how this becomes relevant with the Third Temple and the deception against humanity. And of course, this is all against righteousness, against moral conscience, against treating others how you want to be treated, and therefore it is evil. It is pure evil. And of course, you have the suffering caused to children, which is a key part of all of this. So we've mentioned the red heifer that it talks about here, and the red heifers being sacrificed as part of this Third Temple ceremony. Well, here's an article stating that the red heifers were moved from Texas to Israel in September 2022. Now remember, 2022 is a very important year. It's when I started to make inquiries through the company that led to the irrefutable evidence of the satanic system that our governments have in place around the world to exploit and victimize billions of people. And here we are, the red heifers were moved from Texas to Israel in 2022 in September. The company that was involved in the movement of the red heifer, according to this, was UVNE Jerusalem, a group committed to seeing a new temple built in Jerusalem's old city. This is an article from the 5th of March 2024. And when you search UVNE Company's House on Google, it comes up with uvine.com Limited. Okay, so one letter missing, uvine.com instead of UVNE. When we go into that company, we can see that it was incorporated in 1999 and dissolved in 2020. On the incorporation document, it appears to be forged and is involving the same company, Waterloo Secretaries Limited. This name, Dunstana Davies, also features throughout the fraud significantly. Now, Waterloo not only links to the currency producer de la Rue, but it also links to the Freemasons and the royal family very, very quickly, and through to international child trafficking. Within the company, Guy Coltman links to the British-German Association. Now, this very company has featured several times throughout the fraud, and remember, we've just been talking about a German connection to the Church of Satan. Another director within Uvine, you can see at the top, uvine.com. This one, Frank Homan III, connects to Cardinal Partners Limited. You can see his name at the top. Within Cardinal Partners, which dissolved in 2010, you can see the incorporation document is linked to the same companies as Exborn Manor Freehold Limited, Swift Incorporations Limited and Jordan's Limited. Remember, created in 1965, the year before the Church of Satan. Within the Cardinal Company at the top, you can see the Cardinal name. Philip Swapman links to Rothschild Companies, NM Rothschild Corporate Finance Limited and NM Rothschild and Sons Limited. These companies link extremely quickly to the Church of England via the research of Justin Welby, the Archbishop of Canterbury, with fraud throughout. If we look at NM Rothschild and Sons, we can see it's an active company that was incorporated in 1968, 2 years after the foundation of the Church of Satan. On their incorporation document within the filing history, NM Rothschild and Company Limited, not NM Rothschilds and Sons Limited, as it states on the register. So it's a criminal, fraudulent entity company. So what else happened in September 2022, the year that I started to expose the fraud? Well, in February was when Vladimir Putin announced the special operation against Ukraine. And yes, Vladimir Putin is part of this international satanic government fraud. The evidence is clear. But you also had the supposed death of Queen Elizabeth II on the 8th of September 2022. They now appear to have removed one of the articles that stated on the same date as the Queen's death, or literally the day after, or the same day, I can't remember, that King Charles is related to Vlad the Impaler, a descendant. But here are various other articles stating that information. I'm not going to go into them all. Of course, Vlad the Impaler makes references to Dracula, and I can tell you without a shadow of a doubt there is a huge connection to this international government fraud and to the blood of children being consumed and the murder and torture and abuse of children. And of course, the death of the Queen paved the way for Charles becoming the new king. As mentioned in my other videos, on the May the 6th, 2024, which you can see here on a screenshot from my Telegram channel, I released evidence in relation to Rishi Sunak linking to the international government fraud and to Russia and Ukraine and Export Manor Freehold Limited. Within that was also a link to the royal family. On the 14th of May, you can see I publicised evidence here and the threat in relation to directed energy towards the public or towards the masses within the communication systems. The document to which this evidence relates and was being shown is here. On page 94, publicised an important company called the Royal Foundation of the Prince and Princess of Wales. And its previous company names are shown here. Founded in 2009, it changed its name in 2012, the same year that CERN supposedly found or created the God's particle, or Higgs boson particle. But look when they changed their name again. Second from the top, September 2019, they changed their name to the Royal Foundation of the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge. That's 2 years before the outbreak of COVID in Wuhan, supposed outbreak. As I then continued my exposure and reported the criminal system, or started to report it to the relevant authorities, they changed their name again in November 2022 to the Royal Foundation of the Prince and Princess of Wales. The incorporation document shows that it's linked to Bates, Wells and Braithwaite, which means it then connects to Keir Starmer and the Madeleine McCann case. Very important companies further down on the document, the last page, page 40, shows Lloyds Banking Group, Lloyds TSB Bank. And it's very important because when I was removed as a director from Export Manor Freehold Limited, which was initiated by the Flemings, it was because I had acquired forged Lloyds bank documents and was refusing to file them as a director, refusing to commit a very serious crime. You can also see the Hackluit International Advisory Board Company. This is a very important company because it links the intelligence agencies through to the royal family, to Russia, to the international government fraud, to the Flemings, and also to Ukraine via the Flemings, an international collaboration of deception in relation to the threat of war. Here is the Hackluit International Advisory Board shown on Companies House. It's dissolved in August 2024 as I exposed the international government fraud. It was incorporated in 1994